Welcome. I'm glad you're here to learn more about the government of the United States today. When the Founding Fathers created the Constitution, they outlined how the federal government would be set up. They decided to divide the federal government into 3 different parts. These parts are referred to as branches. They are the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch. Each branch has specific powers and functions, that are intended to check the power of the other branches. This system of checks and balances was established to keep any one part of the government from getting too powerful. We will be looking at each branch of government in more detail, with separate lessons for each branch. In this lesson, we will be talking about the executive branch of government, which is the largest branch of the federal government, with many departments and agencies. This is the White House, located in Washington, D.C. This is where the President of the United States resides while they are in office. The President is the leader of the executive branch of the federal government, is the leader of the United States, and is the Commander-in-Chief of the military. The Constitution gives the President the ability to either approve or veto bills passed by the legislative branch of the government. If he signs the bill, it becomes law in the United States. If he vetoes the bill, it goes back to Congress, where a 2/3 majority vote is required to override the veto. This check on the power of the legislative branch is significant, because only about 7% of vetoed bills have ever been overridden in the history of the United States. The President also represents the United States to other countries by meeting with other world leaders to discuss solutions for problems between countries. In the United States, we elect a president and vice president every 4 years. These elections are on the first Tuesday in November. The Constitution lists some requirements for a person to be eligible to become the president. First, the person has to be a natural-born citizen of the United States. While naturalized citizens can run for federal office, they can never become president, because of this requirement. The person must also be at least 35 years old, and they have to have been a resident of the United States for at least 14 years. If a person is eligible to run for president, they must first be nominated by their political party in order to be on the November election ballot. There are 2 major political parties in America. They are the Democratic Party, and the Republican Party. You may also hear the Republican Party referred to as the GOP, which stands for the Grand Old Party. Once nominated, American citizens vote for who they would like to be the president and vice president. We vote for the president and vice president together, as a team. After winning the election, the president-elect will take the oath of office the following January at the inauguration ceremony. After serving for 4 years, the current president can decide to run for president again, but a president cannot serve more than 2 terms as president, based on the 22nd Amendment to the Constitution. This amendment was not fully put into place until 1951. President Franklin Roosevelt is the only president to have served more than 2 terms in office. He was elected a total of 4 times, but died shortly into his 4th term. The job of the President of the United States is very complex. As the leader of the executive branch of government, the President is responsible for the largest part of our government. The executive branch is made up of 15 different departments, which employ over 4 million Americans. To help the President lead well, a group of experts, referred to as the Cabinet, oversee the 15 departments of the executive branch, and advise the President on their area of responsibility. Each of these departments enforce our laws and carry out a wide variety of government programs. For your civics test, you will only need to be able to list 2 cabinet-level positions. In just a moment, we will list all of the cabinet-level positions, and then we will briefly describe the area of responsibility for several of them to help you remember them. In total there are 15 cabinet members, plus the Vice President. The 15 cabinet positions are: Secretary of State, Secretary of the Treasury, Secretary of Defense, Attorney General, Secretary of the Interior, Secretary of Agriculture, Secretary of Commerce, Secretary of Labor, Secretary of Health and Human Services, Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Secretary of Transportation, Secretary of Energy, Secretary of Education, Secretary of Veterans Affairs, and the Secretary of Homeland Security. The Department of Defense is the largest agency in the federal government. Its headquarters is the Pentagon, in Arlington, Virginia. The Pentagon is the world's largest office building with about 6.5 million square feet of office space, and over 26,000 employees. The Secretary of Defense is the leader of this department, and is responsible for advising the President on issues of national defense, and overseeing our nation's military, including the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines. In all, the Department of Defense employs close to 3 million people. The Secretary of State is the leader of the Department of State. The Department of State is in charge of managing our relationships with over 180 other countries. It employs over 60,000 people. The Secretary of State is the main advisor to the President on all issues of foreign affairs. The Department of State is also responsible for issuing passports to American citizens, and both non-immigrant, and immigrant visas, to people who want to enter the United States. The Secretary of the Treasury oversees the Department of the Treasury, which employs close to 90,000 people. The Department of the Treasury manages all of the financial systems for the United States, prints the money that we use in the United States, and is in charge of collecting taxes to ensure that the government has the ability to keep running. The Attorney General is the leader of the Department of Justice, and is the chief lawyer for the federal government. Like all cabinet-level positions, the Attorney General is nominated by the President, and then must be confirmed and appointed by the US Senate. As the top lawyer in the United States, the Attorney General is the main advisor to the President on all legal matters. In all, the Department of Justice employs over 110,000 people, including at the FBI and US Marshal Service. As you can see, cabinet members are responsible for many people, and very complex tasks. They are very important advisors for the President, and according to the Constitution, they are in the presidential order of succession. This means that if something happens to the President, there is a plan in place about who will take over the duties of the President. We'll talk more about this order of succession next. There is a plan defined in the Constitution for what must happen if the President of the United States is no longer able to serve. This can happen when a president dies, a president resigns, or if the president is removed from office. This plan in the Constitution is called the Presidential Order of Succession. This plan has had to be followed 9 times so far, in the course of our history. One tragic example occurred in 1963, when President John F. Kennedy was assassinated. This is a memorial located in Dallas, Texas that was constructed to honor President Kennedy. He was shot by a sniper when driving in a motorcade on November 22, 1963. Soon afterward, Vice President Lyndon B. Johnson took the oath of office on board Air Force One, which is the President's official airplane used for travel. According to the plan of succession, if the President can no longer serve, the Vice President becomes President. If both the Vice President and President can no longer serve, then the Speaker of the House of Representatives becomes President. This situation has never happened in American history. Nonetheless, there is an order of succession that includes all members of the President's cabinet. If something tragic were to happen to many different people in our government, there is still a plan in place to ensure that there is a peaceful transition of power for the presidency. In all, there are potentially 18 individuals in the order of succession. However, cabinet members who do not meet the President's age, citizenship, and residency requirements, are not eligible to act as President. As an example, among the 15 cabinet members serving in September of 2021, 2 of them are not eligible because they are not natural-born citizens. That's all of the information for this lesson on the executive branch. Next, we will go over the civics test questions covered in this lesson. In all, there are 15 questions from this lesson, so be sure to take your time reviewing the content of this lesson. Alright. Let's go over all of the civics test questions from this unit. The answers regarding the President and Vice President will eventually change in the future. The answers given here are current as of September 2021. Name one branch or part of the government. The 3 branches are executive, legislative, and judicial. You could also answer President, Congress, or the courts. Who is in charge of the executive branch? The President. We elect a president for how many years? 4. In what month do we vote for president? November. What is the name of the President of the United States now? Joseph Biden. What is the name of the Vice President of the United States now? Kamala Harris. If the President can no longer serve, who becomes President? The Vice President. If both the President and the Vice President can no longer serve, who becomes President? The Speaker of the House. Who is the Commander-in-Chief of the military? The President. Who signs bills to become laws? The President. Who vetoes bills? The President. What does the President's cabinet do? Advises the President. What are 2 cabinet-level positions? Secretary of Agriculture. Secretary of the Interior, Secretary of Commerce, Secretary of Labor, Secretary of Defense, Secretary of State, Secretary of Education, Secretary of Transportation, Secretary of Energy, Secretary of the Treasury, Secretary of Health and Human Services, Secretary of Veterans Affairs, Secretary of Homeland Security, Attorney General, Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Vice President. What are the two major political parties in the United States? Democratic and Republican. What is the political party of the president now? Democratic Party. That's all of the civics test questions for this unit. Remember, you can always review the civics test questions by using the flashcards in the app. Thanks for taking part in today's lesson. We hope to see you again for a future lesson.